How's it going, Doom Patrollers? Welcome to my Doom Patrol Season 3, Episode 8 recap, review, and breakdown. So, I do apologize that this review is pretty late. I normally would get it up on the day of release of the episode, which is yesterday, but I went through my own eternal flagellation. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know why, but they made me puke up several times and just lay in bed all day. Look, yeah, I was ill. I'm still pretty ill, so if my energy and stuff and whatnot is pretty low, that's why I've been sick all week. So I just wanted to apologize about that. But yeah, with that out the way and my own eternal little flappy-winged flagellation bird with my face on it appearing to me yesterday, I kind of know exactly what the Doom Patrol went through in this episode. No, but really, what a fantastic episode. Doom Patrol is just killing it. Like some people were saying, too much standy, talky. What? I understand that some other shows have more action, but I don't think Doom Patrol's ever been, like, insanely action-oriented. It's always about these deep layers of story that is, you know, multifaceted for each singular member of the Doom Patrol. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, this episode was a lot more talky stuff, but that's, to me at least, what Doom Patrol was all about. If you're watching a show kind of thinking, oh, I need action, I don't know if this is for you, if you know what I mean. And I went off on that tangent because I was kind of surprised to read that. I've seen a few comments like that, but to me, this season is, you know, some of the best introspective Doom Patrol, you know, written stuff that they've ever done, and this episode goes ham on that. It's a very trippy episode, so let's go through this episode, guys, because, you know, the eternal flagellation is here, and it is somewhat what I thought as well, in a way. This deep introspective look at your subconscious self in a sense. And, you know, that doesn't inherently make the Sisterhood of Dada bad, which is, you know, something I really like about this season. The somewhat antagonists, if you will, aren't all that antagonistic. Well, except for the Brotherhood of Evil. But other than that, guys, like this video. If you do go on to enjoy it, I really appreciate that. And of course, subscribe for more videos like this, because trust me, you don't want to miss out on a certain video I have coming out next week with maybe Javan Wade. You know, if you've got any questions, maybe you want to leave them down in the comments below. So this episode picked up with all the little Dada winged heads of the Doom Patrol, and it all launches us into the first little somewhat subconscious self version of Victor when he was a kid, and this is where he was searching for a toy, a black superhero, something that, you know, obviously around the time of when Vic was a kid, it was definitely something that you probably wouldn't find too much other than the General Tony toy. And even the store manager says, yeah, we don't sell black superhero toys because nobody buys them. Not to mention, like, Vic was, like, accused for just damaging property. Like, I mean, I guess, yeah, he did put the toys on the floor, but I wouldn't go as far as saying that. So you can see, obviously, how this is highlighting these kind of racial discrimination-y somewhat things, and how this obviously leads into this pivotal moment for Cyborg where he somewhat lost his childhood, because as of this moment, especially when Silas came around and told Vic, you know, you can't make a mistake. We don't get to make a mistake. One mistake could cost you your life. And obviously Silas, being a much older man who has obviously lived a life of probably a lot of discrimination, he's very fearful of what that could mean for his son if he's not really as aware as what he thinks he should be. And in this moment, he's somewhat really giving that moment and lesson to Vic of what could happen. And honestly, it's just sad because it obviously reflects what a lot of black kids go through today. You know, they somewhat lose a lot of their childhood out of being hypervigilant about something they shouldn't be vigilant about in the first place, because skin color to my color doesn't make any indifference. Sorry, it just frustrates me, as it should, obviously, but this was a big moment for Vic, because from this moment on, as we got further into the episode, it was revealed like he had to be perfect, please everyone after that, you know, be disciplined, just everything like that, when you shouldn't necessarily have to be, if you know what I mean. Now with Jane, and this is what I mean about this episode, and I called the last episode a quintessential Doom Patrol episode, but so was this one. Not negating how great last episode was, but it feels so good that I've enjoyed all season, but it really does feel like the back half has even more Doom Patrol DNA purely in these episodes. So as I said, last episode was quintessential in everything, with comedy, deep introspective moments, feelsy moments. This episode again, because for crying out loud, you had Jane in the underground avenue with Kay and whatnot, and the personality puppets, if you will, which is absolutely hilarious. You had moments in this episode that can literally make you cry. So once again, just a big fan of how darted all over the place this episode is, in the best kind of ways. It didn't feel like the pacing or too many things were blurted all over the place, whereas I feel like another show, for example, would kind of struggle. Like, I feel like a writer would struggle to try and keep each part and each chunk of this episode just as meaningful as they try to be in those scenes, like through each storyline. But you would have thought somewhere along the way, one of them would be kind of a bit not as good, or like as catered to or as focused on as the other scenes. But honestly, I felt like every scene in this episode was given just as much care and didn't draw you out of the overall episode at any moment. So they're obviously in Kay's subconscious, but then this is when we go to Cliff. And as for Cliff, I was really looking forward to this, just, because I'm one of the people rallying towards Brendan Fraser's resurgence, if you will, and I think a lot of us are very happy for him, getting roles, for example, in Batgirl. I know this is a bit of a tangent right now, but he is playing Firefly in the Batgirl HBO Max movie. I don't know if any of you know that. I mean, a lot of you probably do, but I'm sure one or two of you have just learned that. So yeah, very happy that we got Brendan Fraser talking to Cliff. Just the whole what the fuck like to each other in these moments was just absolutely priceless. I know we've seen Brendan Fraser on the show in this Cliff get up in the human form before, but I feel like this was some of, if not the best of it we've ever had. And then with Larry, it appears that initially his actual self, rather than the subconscious self, is in the wedding day, his wedding day where he's getting married. But obviously it's something he's committing to when he's living a bit of a lie. And I love how deep this episode gets into the trauma of each character of the Doom Patrol, and namely here with Larry is with his mother coming in. And, once again, it's just another thing that frustrates me. I think when I think too hard about these things, it really pisses me off. But I think it's because I have friends as well in this exact situation as the lines that Larry's mum gives to Larry in this moment, where he says things like, you have to make a break from all those immoral things you've done, show the Lord that you can be devoted to a woman, and how she's prayed for him to change. In my heart, I know that you don't bring shame onto my life. It's like, go fuck yourself. Like, but it's so pivotally important, to show scenes like this, because there are people out there going through that exact same thing. And obviously for Larry, this was a very big significant moment in his past, because this was, some of the beginnings of where the journey and the lie, if you will, started. But at the same time, you can't blame people for kind of falling into those, I don't know if I want to call it a trap, but you know what I mean. Like, Larry's kind of been enduring this since, the first thing that comes to my mind is that flashback of when he was a kid. We heard his parents arguing. I think they were like speculating if he was gay or not and stuff. And you see Larry really sad. So imagine like growing up with that shame, especially in that time period all the way back then. You can't really blame anyone for kind of, repressing and trying to go through with stuff. But think of the kind of pit of torture that would leave within you. So like, yet again, such strong material for this episode to get into with Larry. I know we've been going through this kind of experience for Larry for multiple seasons, but it never gets old, because this is something that isn't so easily untangled like a shoelace knot. Do you know what I mean? This story that Larry goes through with not only accepting himself, which we have come a long way from earlier seasons, but yet again, it's somewhat multifaceted. It's not like as easy as clicking your fingers and then you're right as rain, So this Subconscious Patrol episode, I just love it. I know I keep praising it, but like, then when I think of the next characters, like each one has such baggage that is so fucking relevant. It's such rich material, and I don't see how anyone could not like this. And also, I think that's what makes this episode one of the best episodes in Doom Patrol's history. Continuing on, we then taken to where the other subconscious versions of the Doom Patrol are, such as, Adult K, Brendan Fraser's Cliff, General Tony for Vic and whatnot, and it gets a bit explained as to what exactly is going on here, but not before we see the news on the TV, and it does appear that it's not just, I believe, Cloverton that is experiencing the fog, because we see this kid say there's a fog spreading all over the world. All kinds of creatures are walking the earth. And the only feedback I have for this episode, if any at all, this isn't a complaint, it's just like, it would have been cool for even an 8-second shot of maybe a panned out camera shot of the world, of the fog going over it, so we could see literally the population of maybe the entire world, if not just America, going through their own eternal flagellations, if you know what I mean. That would have just made it look like, okay, not only are the Doom Patrol going through this episode, but entire counties, states, countries, since it's meant to be the whole world. I just feel 6 to 8 second CGI shot of the fog going over, people just being like, oh my god, seeing a couple of actors or stand-ins having their own little face Dada bird fly down, just to make us realize and remember that the whole world is going through this as well. And it is the Sisterhood's artistic experience that is meant to bring the world to its knees and for everyone to somewhat reconcile with their own being. And so the idea through that is no one will really be able to hide who they are anymore, thus hopefully eliminating some of the evil from the world. Which is when they leave Doom Manor to kind of go out in the world, and you see Shelley Byron's fog everywhere, and you see the Toad Bonnet Bee little bicycle going around. So I'm guessing this is meant to be more or less you can imagine this kind of foggy atmosphere all around the world. Up next, we get into some of the 1949 flashbacks after, I guess, Rita escaped in blob form to go to the Brotherhood of Evil lair. I do have some questions, how did she get there? Was it a secret part to where the Bureau is? Because we know that Rita fell down that vent. I'm not going to get too nitpicky here. I want to know how Rita found the location. But other than that, it was really, really, really cool to see Madame Rouge's origin story, because I didn't know if they were actually going to somewhat really tread new ground this season with Madame Rouge, because I didn't even know if we were going to get into her Brotherhood of Evil ties. I thought it was going to be this wholly new innovative thing with how, up until this moment, we hadn't even seen her connection to the Brotherhood other than knowing that surely the time travel machine pertains to the Brotherhood, thus her traveling through that would mean she's a part of the Brotherhood. So all in all, we finally got to the moment where she goes to the Brotherhood, because obviously after being let go from the Bureau because of Niles, which is why she has quite a thing against Niles, she wants to join them, and she thinks, screw it, I'm just gonna be evil. I found, of course, Ultimax and Monsieur Mille absolutely hilarious. I love them. I wish we just got a bit more of them this season. I do feel like they've been very well tastefully spent, though, considering the story we have got with everything else going on. But yeah, the plan is, obviously at this point, the Brotherhood is searching for a human guinea pig to travel to the year 2021, as Madame Rouge said, in a time machine that they reverse engineered, which, as I thought, it was true from a drawing that the Brain and Monsieur Mille drew 30 years ago. So they reverse engineered their own creation. I thought that's where they were going with that. Steal Niles Calder's invention to bring them back here to 1949 so that they would invent them before he does, steal his dreams, and basically rule the world. But yet again, we still don't have a continuation from the moment of when we had, I'm pretty sure, the Brain contacting Cliff about selling his schematics to this mysterious person online. So I'm guessing in the finale or next week's episode, we have to wait and see. But I keep bringing this up. I expect to see Ultimax return in some kind of Cliff-esque steel suit, which obviously, as we know, houses a brain. So I really hope we do get to see the Brotherhood in present day. But yeah, this was more or less her origin, you could say, in this iteration of Doom Patrol, and how she got in the fold of the Brotherhood. I love how Monsieur Mille and the Brain absolutely love her accent and stuff, and not only that, it's just they find it very evil, and they call her Madame Rouge, which is a brilliant name, especially seeing Michelle Gomez in that red get up that she was wearing. I feel like she slayed that, and it did feel like that is Madame Rouge. Now, the 1949 flashbacks continue a little bit later in the episode, but I just want to talk about it now, with that scene between Rita and Madame Rouge, which was, it was a very well acted scene. And I just felt like April Bowlby did such a good job. Obviously, Michelle Gomez as well, but it's just, you know, from Rita's perspective, it's just like, what happened to you? Like, you were friends with us for a long time. Like, decades went past. I think that's something we need to remember. Like, Rita's actually been there for 30 years. The only other question I have is, I understand how Rita doesn't age, and I'm really trying not to get nitpicky, but like, what about Shelley Byron and obviously Lloyd Malcolm's Frenzy and the others? Maybe their own powers prevent them from aging as well. I think that's what we have to go along with here. Rita basically gets down to, you betrayed every friend you ever had, and it wasn't because of duty, it's because of too much power is never enough for you. And she loved playing God with those sweet boys and girls that she just sent off to war, you know, marking them as weapon and whatever, right? So it was just a really cool confrontational scene. It was tragic at the same time, because you see there is this duality to this person that is Madame Rouge. You could see it, like, in the flashbacks when we saw them partying with the Sisterhood and stuff. It's just ultimately a shame, because I think the person she is, unfortunately, just is a bit of a dick, you know? She does have the capacity to be a nice person, but it's as Niles Calder said in that letter. I wish I could remember the exact words now, but they really do, you know, in retrospect, completely personify who she is, a disloyal something, you know what I mean? And that whole scene, you know, where Rita, you know, tried to choke her and she turned into Malcolm. Oh man, how sadistic do you want to get, in a way? It just crushed Rita and kind of propelled her forward to obviously do the next things we saw in the flashbacks. That's to use the time travel machine, send herself back into the room so Samuelson would kill all of the Doom Patrol, to ensure, of course, that she would still meet Malcolm and everything. That was the most likely thing, even back then when we saw it. Like, it's usually one of those things where you want to ensure the timeline, so you do that through doing what she did. We have Shipley's commentary again throughout this. I always found that pretty hilarious, because I didn't realize when we heard it the first time that Rita could actually hear it. Her memories from her life before she went time traveling return, so everything from, you know, living with the Doom Patrol, the past few seasons come back, but with that, her insecurities, her shame, but she would have her vengeance and pursue Madame Rouge until the end of time. And yeah, like, obviously towards the very end of the episode when they see each other, and if you've seen the promo, Rita is ready for a battle. But carrying on with Jane a little bit, we saw all of the other puppets just kind of freaking out, and it's exactly what we've all been saying. So, like, you know, what if she got better? She wouldn't do that, would she? Could she? It's like, what do you mean? Like, she wouldn't do that, get better. Like, she wouldn't do that to... What? No, you should want her to get better, but yet again, obviously these personalities fear that if she gets better, she will no longer have a use for them. And honestly, this episode seriously subverted some of my expectations with the ending. Like, oh my god. This is when things took a wild turn, where Harry gets involved and Jane's just like, shut the fuck up, Harry. What do you... That just made me laugh my ass off, especially when things took a turn where he got, like, beheaded and everything by all the personalities. I was like, god damn. And then with Vic, carrying on with him, he's then just trapped in the little toy box. He's talking to the younger version of himself, saying, you know, you were scared and it's okay to be a child. But then, like, we have the younger Vic saying, but Dad said no more mistakes. Yet again, kind of, you know, just going into what we were talking about towards the beginning of this video. One thing I just want to say is that Javan Wade's performance this episode, a lot of the performances this episode were incredible, but yeah, Javan Wade always, you know, when it gets into his story with his past, his mother, his father, especially some of the scenes later, they're absolute scene stealers. But as I was saying with the Doom Patrol following Rita out into the fog and whatnot, this is what I mean by things jumping about. I'm trying to keep it cohesive, but they all were like, screw this, we're going back to Doom Manor and waiting for the eternal flagellation to kind of work itself out. And that's very characteristic, I think, I would say, of the Doom Patrol. They somewhat don't want to confront their shit, if you know what I mean, in their heads. So initially that is what they would do, and I believed that when they went in there, but obviously it came to a point of where they had to somewhat reckon with their own conscious selves and subconscious selves, if you know what I mean, and somewhat air that baggage out. I like how initially they did the thing where they rather throw it away, go back, make a little tent, hang out in there, but then, you know, you can't help but face the shame that you're kind of living through all the time. And that's what this is all about, the eternal flagellation, obviously. And I think Larry kind of spearheaded that initially, you know, asking General Tony, which is, you know, really Vic, if the Sisterhood of Dada is right, maybe knowing why there's a General Tony in Vic's subconscious will help us move forward. It's somewhat of this duty to our conscious selves, which is like a really cool meta-y thing. Like, imagine if this was like real, like you have your own subconscious saying into a room of other subconsciouses who are friends with each other, obviously. I mean, their conscious selves are friends or whatever. Saying we have a duty to our conscious selves so that they can live a better life. But obviously, they're still you in a way, even if they're your subconscious. So they still don't quite want to do it, you know, even though they're the ones who are aware of a lot of things. It's really trippy, but something so intrinsically important. Do you know what I mean? And that's what this makes this episode so particularly special. This starts like a whole bunch of things, you know, and Cliff is initially adamant about avoiding their shit. Larry starts calling him out on that. Kay says she doesn't need the other personalities, which was like, oh damn, I mean, we all knew that was coming anyway. Cliff then kind of goes on a bit of a monologue about he's dying from Parkinson's and whatnot. He talks through his life, which is, you know, where it started. This is where it all starts, really, if you know what I mean, the progress, because how he felt special once he got a taste of the race car life, coming from nothing to going into something, which then got him hooked onto all of that, as we know with Cliff's story in the past anyway. Brendan Fraser was absolutely fantastic in this moment. I believe this is when about the time where he breaks down as well. And this is around the time as well where we were carrying on with Cliff's conscious self in that somewhat memory of where he went into that party that was hosted from him with Bud there, and I believe like he gets a massive cake out, a stripper for him, and you know, Cliff has gone through a bit of regression this season, character regression I would say. That's not a bad thing, because you know what Doom Patrol I think is trying to highlight here, because you know Cliff has come a long way in these seasons. I mean, like, holy shit, he's reconnected with his daughter, but sometimes we are only human. And some people might be like, why is his character regressing? What's going on? Like, why is the writing doing... But like, as I said, we're only humans. Sometimes we do relapse into things. Sometimes that happens. But what we can do is confront that and hopefully move forward. And that is ideally what this episode is trying to do, from where Cliff has been getting back into things, like selling his friends stuff and paying money on games and webcam girls and things like that, and just spending and spending. This episode was very pivotal for someone like him, because obviously towards the end when we had Clara leave saying, I don't know what's going on with you, but this ain't it. And obviously he learns to be like, oh, well, crap. Because initially he's like, yeah, screw it, you know, I'm gonna be the king. But then when that stripper says, you know, there's a girl out there in a car all by herself, that particularly triggers him, and it's just like he realizes that, oh, this is what this is all about. What I find interesting and what I like about this episode a lot as well is that it wasn't straightforward. Like, even though Cliff was given somewhat of the moment where he sees the ugly side to him, and you would expect him to be like, oh, you're right, I'm a horrible person, or something with Vic later on, you know, like... It's not resolved. It's not like actually purely resolved. Like, for example, Cliff towards the end was somewhat rejecting. I mean, he heard about it, and I think deep inside he knows that Brendan Fraser's version of himself was saying everything completely right. But I like how this episode didn't make everything happy springy after the eternal flagellation. Do you know what I mean? It's not like everything was resolved. They learned a lot of the ugly side of themselves, like Cliff, but at the end, you know, it wasn't exactly resolved for him. Like Brendan Fraser's Cliff version of himself was like, dude, and he disappeared, or like Cyborg's General Tony. That didn't exactly end in the most chipper resolution of a way. And that's something I like, because it's just not like, oh, eternal flagellation, self-reflection, introspection, everything's magically okay. It's not always as straightforward as that. Even when we realize critical flaws within ourselves, sometimes we might learn that information, but it also takes a bit of digesting, if you know what I mean. And I think that is what's going on with particularly Cliff and Cyborg at the end, where other characters, maybe like Larry, went through it a bit better. And as for Jane, well, that's something else entirely, with Kay actually wanting to grow up, and her and the personalities having to reconcile with, oh shit, what are we gonna do if that actually happens? This is when a portal appears to Cliff and he jumps through, which takes him to Larry. Another portal opens around where Larry is in the church, and then they both jump through, which takes him to Vic. So this is when they're kind of all getting out of the eternal... Well, that's technically not, because they all visit themselves, or their subconscious selves, which I thought was amazing. Absolutely amazing. But I really like the Vic scene, because before Vic goes, he asked Cliff or Larry to give him something from his pocket, and it was actually one of those rocks that his mum used to put by that tree or whatever every single time she went hiking. It's like a little piece that he could give to his younger self, if you know what I mean. I thought that was like a nice little touch. Then they're taken to Jane, and this moment was quite freaky. I mean, I thought it was hilarious, and they managed to take her through the portal, but then we have the other personalities who are still freaking out about Kay not needing them. and they say, like, Jane's just gotta go off and leave us with a mess again, and that's when Dr. Harrison's like, again? No, not again. Never again. So that made me think, oh crap, what are they gonna do? But as we know, they're all gone a little bit later on when Jane is in the underground. So what were they gonna do? But I guess they don't have the chance to do it now. And talk about trippy, guys. Once they go through that portal, they're in, like, Cliff's car, racing through this weird wormhole of Dadaism, if you will. But that then takes them to the subconscious versions of themselves, where they somewhat really hash out what needs to be done, whether it's for better or for worse. Because as I said, like, it somewhat worked out, I think, for maybe Larry more than other people. But as I said, it didn't properly resolve for everyone, even though they heard what they needed to hear, and it's somewhat up to them to navigate from here on out. As I said earlier, this was probably one of my favorite scenes, because we got to have, I mean, your conscious self talking to your subconscious self. Not only that, seeing the actors with the people who play them all the time. You know, for example, Matthew Zook, who's underneath the bandages, of which Matt Bomer voices all those lines. You know, how cool would it have been for these actors to finally have, well, it's not like, I don't think it's the first scene they've had together, but you know what I mean, they got to, like, talk to each other, and I just thought both in episode but also behind the scenes, that must have been really, really cool. But with Kay, that was arguably some of the biggest shocking stuff. I know she was growing up, but out of all the personalities, I felt like she trusted Jane the most, and I'm not saying that she doesn't, but, you know, Jane is more or less like a re-embodiment of Jane's grandmother, or Kay's grandmother. That's why Jane is called Jane. And we always knew and saw how happy Kay was to see Jane, even despite her still wanting to grow up this season. So when I heard her say that you just cause me more trauma, everything you do just brings me more pain, and it's time for me. Okay, it is time for you, Kay, fair enough if you want to go up there, but I felt bad for Jane when she says everything you do brings me trauma, when arguably Jane is the MVP personality out of all of them. That's why she is primary. So I know at the end of the day, Kay is still just a young kid, so maybe it is just a bit of projection here, but I don't know, I somewhat disagree a little bit. It's just like, I feel bad for Jane, because it's like, Jane's the one out of all the personalities who protects you the most and has been advocating for you to go up to the surface. So when she said, I wish you would die, it was like, and in that moment, Jane's just like, no, and she loses it. And I think she is really, you know, struggling to even comprehend what she just heard. She is melting down. Around this time, the fog was lifting, and we had that moment with Clara and Cliff at the end. She doesn't seem happy, obviously, looking at her dad, just kind of in his old ways again. Larry goes back in the woods looking for his little negative grub. I guess that's what I'm calling him now. This was really wholesome, because he was like cradling his little maggoty grub thing, and, you know, I'm very looking forward to see where this goes with him. And Vic, man, this was one of the biggest surprises. Like, and I can't wait to ask Jovan about it as well, because he wakes up no longer Cyborg. And as we know, like, they had to remove all of those cybernetic parts from him in order to do this surgery. So he is literally no longer Cyborg. And that's insane to me, because it's not like, I can't imagine, you could propose saying, well, he could go back to being Cyborg again through putting those implants in him, but I almost can't fathom that. Like, would he really go back to that? But then again, at the same time, how can we not have Cyborg on the show anymore? Because that's who Cyborg the character is, but maybe this is exactly what they're going for, and how Vic can be somebody without having his cyber tech. I mean, that's what they have been going for. Like, your tech isn't what makes you, Vic. So I get what they're going for there, but at the same time, from a standpoint of looking at Vic as a character in the comics, Vic Stone is also Cyborg. So I know I keep going back and forth at the minute, but my head's going all over the place looking into future seasons. Like, this is a guy who goes on to join the Justice League as Cyborg, yet he's had this surgery. But it's also really weird for me to imagine him reversing this surgery and having the tech put back in him. So I honestly don't know what to think of this. It's awesome, but it's also like, well, I almost can't imagine him ever going back to Cyborg, because why would you go back from having skin again? That was such a mad, like, ending. And then we had the Madame Rouge and Rita confrontation. Oh man, what an episode. What an episode. So I need to know your theories, guys. I think the biggest one for me that I want to know about you guys from the comments below is, what do you think is going to go on with Jane and Kay, or should I say the other personalities? And, you know, how do you feel about Kay somewhat saying, I want you to die? I felt like that was quite harsh, but I do have to remind myself, maybe it's just a kid being a kid. Who knows? But then Vic. I think the biggest thing for me is Vic as well. Like, I understand maybe what they're getting at, and I'm really interested to see where this goes, but without repeating myself too much more, do you think that he would go back to Cyborg after literally having literal surgery to put skin on him? It's almost something I can't fathom. I need to know your theories, guys. What a fantastic episode. Next episode is Evil Patrol. The promo looks insane. So yeah, I'm just gonna leave it to you guys. So like this video if you did enjoy it, especially if you're at this part. Honestly, like it. You're at this part. You're quite a chunk through the video at the end. So hit that like button. As I said, I'm very happy to announce, and it'll probably be more announced in the next video. I am hopefully speaking to Javan Wade, Cyborg, or maybe not Cyborg on the show now, next week. So that'll be a nice bonus content before the finale, I would say. So maybe submit some questions you might have pertaining to him in this season in this comment section, but I will have a community post next week more dedicated to that. Other than that, everyone, subscribe, of course, for more videos like this, more interviews hopefully in the future, and also check out my links in the top pinned comment, because that's where you can follow me on social media, Discord, and everything good like that. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see all of you Doom Patrollers in the next video. Goodbye.